This is a continuation of The Dream Woman by Wilke comprising the second part and the end. Punctual to the appointed time, Isaac hurriedly and nervously led his promised wife into the room. His mother rose to receive her, advanced a few steps smiling, looked Rebecca full in the eyes, and suddenly stopped. Her face, which had been flushed the moment before, turned white in an instant. Her eyes lost their expression of softness and kindness, and assumed a blank look of terror. Her outstretched hands fell to her sides, and she staggered back a few steps, with a low cry to her son. "Isaac," she whispered, clutching him fast by the arm, when he asked alarmedly if she was taken ill. "Isaac, does that woman's face remind you of nothing?" Before he could answer, before he could look round to where Rebecca stood, astonished and angered by her reception, at the lower end of the room, his mother pointed impatiently to her writing desk and gave him the key. "Open it," she said in a quick, breathless whisper. "What does this mean? Why am I treated as if I had no business here? Does your mother want to insult me?" asked Rebecca angrily. "Open it and give me the paper in the left-hand drawer. Quick! Quick, for heaven's sake," said Mrs. Scatcherd, shrinking further back in terror. Isaac gave her the paper. She looked it over eagerly for a moment, then followed Rebecca, who was now turning away haughtily to leave the room, and caught her by the shoulder, abruptly raised the long, loose sleeve of her gown, and glanced at her hand and arm. Something like fear began to steal over the angry expression of Rebecca's face as she shook herself free from the old woman's grasp. "Mad," she said to herself, "and Isaac never told me." With these few words she left the room. Isaac was hastening after her when his mother turned and stopped his further progress. It wrung his heart to see the misery and terror in her face as she looked at him. "Light grey eyes," she said in low, mournful, awe-struck tones, pointing toward the open door, "a droop in the left eyelid, flaxen hair with a gold-yellow streak in it, white arms with a down upon them, little lady's hand, with a reddish look under the fingernails. The dream woman. Isaac, the dream woman." That faint cleaving doubt which he had never been able to shake off in Rebecca Murdoch's presence was fatally set at rest forever. He had seen her face then before, 7 years before, on his birthday, in the bedroom of the lonely inn. Be warned. Oh, my son, be warned. Isaac, Isaac. Let her go, and do you stop with me. Something darkened the parlour window as those words were said. A sudden chill ran through him, and he glanced sidelong at the shadow. Rebecca Murdoch had come back. She was peering in curiously at them over the low window blind. "I have promised to marry, Mother," he said, "and marry I must." The tears came into his eyes as he spoke and dimmed his sight, but he could just discern the fatal face outside moving away again from the window. His mother's head sank lower. "Are you faint?" he whispered. "Broken-hearted, Isaac." He stooped down and kissed her. The shadow, as he did so, returned to the window, and the fatal face peered in curiously once more. 3 weeks after that day, Isaac and Rebecca were man and wife. All that was hopelessly dogged and stubborn in the man's moral nature seemed to have closed round his fatal passion, and to have fixed it unassailably in his heart. After that first interview in the cottage parlour, no consideration would induce Mrs. Scatcherd to see her son's wife again, or even to talk of her when Isaac tried hard to plead her cause after their marriage. This course of conduct was not in any degree occasioned by a discovery of the degradation in which Rebecca had lived. There was no question of that between mother and son. There was no question of anything but the fearfully exact resemblance between the living, breathing woman and the spectre woman of Isaac's dream. Rebecca, on her side, neither felt nor expressed the slightest sorrow at the estrangement between herself and her mother-in-law. Isaac, for the sake of peace, had never contradicted her first idea that age and long illness had affected Mrs. Scatcherd's mind. He even allowed his wife to upbraid him for not having confessed this to her at the time of their marriage engagement, rather than risk anything by hinting at the truth. The sacrifice of his integrity before his one all-mastering delusion, seemed but a small thing, and cost his conscience but little after the sacrifices he had already made. The time of waking from this delusion, the cruel and the rueful time, was not far off. After some quiet months of married life, as the summer was ending and the year was getting on toward the month of his birthday, Isaac found his wife altering toward him. She grew sullen and contemptuous. She formed acquaintances of the most dangerous kind in defiance of his objections, his entreaties, and his commands. And worst of all, she learned, ere long, after every fresh difference with her husband, to seek the deadly self-oblivion of drink. Little by little, after the first miserable discovery that his wife was keeping company with drunkards, the shocking certainty forced itself on Isaac that she had grown to be a drunkard herself. He had been in a sadly desponding state for some time before the occurrence of these domestic calamities. His mother's health, as he could but too plainly discern every time he went to see her at the cottage, was failing fast, and he upbraided himself in secret as the cause of the bodily and mental suffering she endured. When to his remorse on his mother's account was added the shame and misery occasioned by the discovery of his wife's degradation, he sank under the double trial. His face began to alter fast, and he looked what he was, a spirit-broken man. His mother, still struggling bravely against the illness that was hurrying her to the grave, was the first to notice the sad alteration in him, and the first to hear of his last worst trouble with his wife. She could only weep bitterly on the day when he made his humiliating confession. But on the next occasion when he went to see her, she had taken a resolution in reference to his domestic afflictions which astonished and even alarmed him. He found her dressed to go out, and on asking the reason received this answer. "I am not long for this world, Isaac," she said, "and I shall not feel easy on my deathbed unless I have done my best to the last to make my son happy. I mean to put my own fears and my own feelings out of the question, and to go with you to your wife and try what I can do to reclaim her. Give me your arm, Isaac, and let me do the last thing I can in this world to help my son before it is too late." He could not disobey her, and they walked together slowly toward his miserable home. It was only 1 o'clock in the afternoon when they reached the cottage where he lived. It was their dinner hour, and Rebecca was in the kitchen. He was thus able to take his mother quietly into the parlour, and then prepare his wife for the interview. She had fortunately drunk but little at that early hour, and she was less sullen and capricious than usual. He returned to his mother with his mind tolerably at ease. His wife soon followed him into the parlour, and the meeting between her and Mrs. Scatcherd passed off better than he had ventured to anticipate, though he observed, with secret apprehension, that his mother, resolutely, as she controlled herself in other respects, could not look his wife in the face when she spoke to her. It was a relief to him, therefore, when Rebecca began to lay the cloth. She laid the cloth, brought in the bread tray, and cut a slice from the loaf for her husband, then returned to the kitchen. At that moment, Isaac, still anxiously watching his mother, was startled by seeing the same ghastly change pass over her face, which had altered it so awfully on the morning when Rebecca and she first met. Before he could say a word, she whispered, with a look of horror, "Take me back. Home. Home again, Isaac. Come with me, and never go back again." He was afraid to ask for an explanation. He could only sign to her to be silent and help her quickly to the door. As they passed the bread tray on the table, she stopped and pointed to it. "Did you see what your wife cut your bread with?" she asked in a low whisper. "No, mother. I was not noticing. What was it?" "Look." He did look. A new clasp knife with a buckhorn handle lay with the loaf in the bread tray. He stretched out his hand shudderingly to possess himself of it. But at the same time there was a noise in the kitchen, and his mother caught at his arm. "The knife of the dream! Isaac, I'm faint with fear. Take me away before she comes back." He was hardly able to support her. The visible, tangible reality of the knife struck him with a panic, and utterly destroyed any faint doubts that he might have entertained up to this time in relation to the mysterious dream warning of nearly 8 years before. By a last desperate effort, he summoned self-possession enough to help his mother out of the house, so quietly that the dream woman, he thought of her by that name now, did not hear them departing from the kitchen. "Don't go back, Isaac. Don't go back," implored Mrs. Scatcherd as he turned to go away, after seeing her safely seated again in her own room. "I must get the knife," he answered under his breath. His mother tried to stop him again, but he hurried out without another word. On his return, he found that his wife had discovered their secret departure from the house. She had been drinking and was in a fury of passion. The dinner in the kitchen was flung under the grate. The cloth was off the parlour table. Where was the knife? Unwisely he asked for it. She was only too glad of the opportunity of irritating him which the request afforded her. He wanted the knife, did he? Could he give her a reason why? No. Then he should not have it. Not if he went down on his knees to ask for it. Further recrimination elicited the fact that she had bought it a bargain, and that she considered it her own especial property. Isaac saw the uselessness of attempting to get the knife by fair means, and determined to search for it. Later in the day, in secret. The search was unsuccessful. Night came on, and he left the house to walk about the streets. He was afraid now to sleep in the same room with her. 3 weeks passed. Still sullenly enraged with him, she would not give up the knife. And still that fear of sleeping in the same room with her possessed him. He walked about at night, or dozed in the parlour, or sat watching by his mother's bedside. Before the expiration of the first week in the new month, his mother died. It wanted then but 10 days of her son's birthday. She had longed to live till that anniversary. Isaac was present at her death, and her last words in this world were addressed to him. "Don't go back, my son. Don't go back." He was obliged to go back if it were only to watch his wife. Exasperated to the last degree by his distrust of her, she had revengefully sought to add a sting to his grief during the last days of his mother's illness, by declaring that she would assert her right to attend the funeral. In spite of all that he could do or say, she held with wicked pertinacity to her word, and on the day appointed for the burial forced herself, inflamed and shameless with drink, into her husband's presence, and declared that she would walk in the funeral procession to his mother's grave. This last worst outrage, accompanied by all that was most insulting in word and look, maddened him for the moment. He struck her. The instant the blow was dealt, he repented it. She crouched down, silent in a corner of the room, and eyed him steadily. It was a look that cooled his hot blood and made him tremble. But there was no time now to think of a means of making atonement. Nothing remained but to risk the worst till the funeral was over. There was but one way of making sure of her. He locked her in her bedroom. When he came back some hours after, he found her sitting, very much altered in look and bearing, by the bedside, with a bundle on her lap. She rose and faced him quietly, and spoke with a strange stillness in her voice, a strange repose in her eyes, a strange composure in her manner. "No man has ever struck me twice," she said, "and my husband shall have no second opportunity. Set the door open and let me go. From this day forth we see each other no more." Before he could answer, she passed him and left the room. He saw her walk away up the street. Would she return? All that night he watched and waited, but no footstep came near the house. The next night, overpowered by fatigue, he lay down in bed in his clothes, with the door locked, the key on the table, and the candle burning. His slumber was not disturbed. The third night, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth passed, and nothing happened. He lay down on the seventh, still in his clothes, still with the door locked, the key on the table, and the candle burning, but easier in his mind, easier in his mind and in perfect health of body when he fell off to sleep, but his rest was disturbed. He woke twice without any sensation of uneasiness, but the third time it was that never to be forgotten shivering of the night at the lonely inn, that dreadful sinking pain at the heart, which once more aroused him in an instant. His eyes opened toward the left-hand side of the bed, and there stood the dream woman again? No, his wife, the living reality, with the dream spectre's face in the dream spectre's attitude, the fair arm up, the knife clasped in the delicate white hand. He sprang upon her almost at the instant of seeing her, and yet not quickly enough to prevent her from hiding the knife. Without a word from him, without a cry from her, he pinioned her in a chair. With one hand he felt up her sleeve, and there, where the dream woman had hidden the knife, his wife had hidden it, the knife with the buckhorn handle that looked like new. In the despair of that fearful moment, his brain was steady, his heart was calm. He looked at her fixedly with the knife in his hand, and said these last words: "You have told me we should see each other no more, and you have come back. It is now my turn to go, and to go forever. I say that we shall see each other no more, and my word shall not be broken." He left her, and set forth into the night. There was a bleak wind abroad, and the smell of recent rain was in the air. The distant church clocks chimed the quarter as he walked rapidly beyond the last houses in the suburb. He asked the first policeman he met what hour that was, of which the quarter past had just struck. The man referred sleepily to his watch and answered, 2 o'clock. 2 in the morning. What day of the month was this day that had just begun? He reckoned it up from the date of his mother's funeral. The fatal parallel was complete. It was his birthday. Had he escaped the mortal peril which his dream foretold? Or had he only received a second warning? As that ominous doubt forced itself on his mind, he stopped, reflected, and turned back again toward the city. He was still resolute to hold to his word and never to let her see him more, but there was a thought now in his mind of having her watched and followed. The knife was in his possession. The world was before him, but a new distrust of her, a vague, unspeakable, superstitious dread had come over him. "I must know where she goes, now she thinks I have left her," he said to himself, as he stole back wearily to the precincts of his house. It was still dark. He had left the candle burning in the bedchamber, but when he looked up to the window of the room now, there was no light in it. He crept cautiously to the house door. On going away, he remembered to have closed it. On trying it now, he found it open. He waited outside, never losing sight of the house till daylight. Then he ventured indoors, listened and heard nothing, looked into kitchen, scullery, parlour, and found nothing, went up at last into the bedroom. It was empty. A picklock lay on the floor, betraying how she had gained entrance in the night, and that was the only trace of her. Whither had she gone, that no mortal tongue could tell him? The darkness had covered her flight, and when the day broke, no man could say where the light found her. Before leaving the house and the town forever, he gave instructions to a friend and neighbour to sell his furniture for anything that it would fetch, and apply the proceeds to employing the police to trace her. The directions were honestly followed, and the money was all spent. But the inquiries led to nothing. The picklock on the bedroom floor remained the one last useless trace of the dream woman. The end. Best audiobooks for free. Hopes that you have enjoyed this production of The Dream Woman by Wilke Collins. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and Rumble, as your subscription is the support we need to create more great free content. Please look to our website at bestaudiobooks for free.com for a complete list of our audiobooks.